everybody. So it's Thursday afternoon. It's kind of rainy and dreary, and it's Thursday afternoon. So we're going to do a little bit of, we're going to practice again with that endpoint sewing function that is on the Luminaire. So we talked about it a little bit last week, and I thought, hi, Marcia. So I thought, you know what? Let's just do this live next week. And I'm just going to warn you, I'm winging this. So I have not tried this. I know how to put binding on, and I know how the sticker thing works. So we're just going to learn this together. Okay. And it is I talked to Judy. My friend Judy Berry does this all the time with hers. So we're just going to learn this together. And Tim will be here, I think, later to talk to everybody at the end. So he isn't here yet. This is the week of spring break here. So he's been gone a couple of days with his family and stuff. So I think he's going to stop in and talk to everybody at the end. So we're just going to do this together. And we're going to put a binding on. I needed to bind my Kimberbell, my little cutie table topper from last Sunday. And I thought, well, I'm just going to leave it, and we're going to do it today. And we're going to use the endpoint sticker to do this. So it actually is very easy. And I talked to Judy about how she does it, and we are going to put it on the binding. We were having a little bit of debate whether that's where we should put it or not last week. And that's where she puts it. So, and then she puts it on after she starts the little procedure, the function, and then she puts it on towards the bottom. You kind of get it kind of close to the bottom, and then you put it on. So that's what we're going to do. And let's see how we do. So this will be an application of what we learned last week. So, okay. So give me a second. Let me turn off the banner. And let me get to my other camera. And then I will see what we can do with this. This will be fun. So I'm looking forward to trying this. I loved the little stopping function with the pen on the Dream Machine and Destiny. So that was something I used all the time, and I missed it. So now I have it back, but it's just a little sticker instead. So how is everybody today? Is it dreary where you are? Yeah, it's really cool. So I'm looking forward to it. And for those of people that have a little trouble with binding, this might be a good way to make sure you're stopping in the right place and all that. So we're just going to do this together. So, all right. So here's my machine. I'm going to lay now, the other thing I want to talk about binding is, give me a second here. When I put binding on, I like to do it with the sewing machine. So this is the way I'm doing my binding. And I don't, if you want to stitch it down by hand, you're going to put the binding on the front of your table topper or whatever. When I use the sewing machine to put it on, I put it on the back. So I'm going to turn this over. This is the back of my table topper, and I'm going to put the binding on my back and flip it over to the front. And we're going to zigzag it down, actually. So the first thing then we need to do is we need to talk about the setup on the machine to get our little sewing function, what do they call it? Endpoint sewing function. Okay, we're going to have to get that set up first. Now this one, we're going to need to be able to have the machine stop for us. Give me a second here to move my computer out of the way a little bit. We need this to stop for us. So when we did this last week, it's called the temporary stop setting, and that is in the settings of the machine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn that on. I'm going to click on my settings button up there. It's the little piece of paper. The reason I zigzag, Barb, is that I cannot get anything straight with a straight stitch. So this is just a different way of binding. So I learned this from a gal online. So see what you think of this. I think I get a much better looking back. I have a hard time with the straight stitch. So yes, I use a zigzag. So you'll see me, this is just going to be a binding video as well. You'll see how I normally do binding. Okay, so we're going to go to page 3, and where it says endpoint setting temporary stop, we need to have that turned on, and I already have it turned on. Okay, so this one we do want it to stop so that we can take the sticker off, because we don't want to sew through our sticker. Okay, so I got that turned on. I'm going to click OK. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this all set up for our stitch we're going to use. So we're going to use a 1/4 inch stitch for this to put our binding on. So I'm going to go to my Q tab and I'm going to use Q02. And if you see Sew Along with Jan, you know, I use Q02 all the time for my 1/4 inch piecing. And then I can just use the J foot because it tells me here to use my J foot. And I'm going to run my fabric right along the right-hand edge of my foot right here, okay? We're not going to use the laser light, okay? We're not going to use the laser light this time because I'm going to be using my foot to help me guide my stitching, my straight stitch, okay? Then we need to get our function open. So we're going to hit the little settings button up here, okay? And we need to open up our stop function, okay? The sewing function, the endpoint function. All right, so now it is set up and it's open, and it doesn't really matter which one of these buttons you have pressed with the straight stitch because it will just stop in a stitch. So either one is fine. I'm just going to pick the first one. It doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to leave the end point on. So that means that at the end, I'm going to get that little blue line that's going to come across. And we did that last week. Okay, so we've got it all set up, ready to go. I am not going to put second here. I'm going to get my papers out of the way here. And I don't know if you can, when I push this over, you'll be able to see the blue line. But I'm not going to put my sticker on yet, because I have to sew a little ways first, and then I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna put my sticker on. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring over here, and here is that blue line right here. Okay, and we're gonna put our binding on. So what Judy told me is she just puts her binding on. I got my 1/4 inch piecing stitch on. She puts her binding on. And when she gets close to the end, when she gets her fabric up to the edge of her machine, like right here, then she stops and puts her sticker on so that she has something to press down on. And we're going to put it on the binding because that was something we weren't sure about last week because I had never done this. So I asked Judy, and this is how she told me to do it. Okay. So we're going to sew down a little ways here. I'm going to leave my open tail. And this binding method I learned many years ago, and it was on a little piece of paper called Bind Aid. And I can link that somewhere for you if you would like to have that. But that works very well for this binding. And this is how I learned to bind. And then the binding off of my binding landed on the floor. The binding on the back and flipping to the front, I learned from Gudrun Erla from GE Designs. GEquiltdesigns.com is her website. She has a couple really good binding videos. So that's how I learned this. Okay, so I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to tie off where I'm going to start. I've got my little sticker ready. Here's my sticker. Okay, got my little sticker ready, hopefully. And I might need a new one because this one's not very sticky. I've got some new ones. We'll get a new one. Make sure it doesn't come off. And you want to make sure your sticker stays on well. Okay. All right. So we're going to sew down a little ways. I tied off. I'm going to sew down my 1/4 inch. Okay. And then when my machine gets up here, when this gets up here on the edge of my machine, I'm going to stop. And you can tell where the corner of your quilt top is. If you put your finger right there where the edge of your quilt top is, I'm going to put that sticker right in the corner, just like we did on the piece of fabric last week. And I'm going to put that right in the corner, and I can feel where the edge is. And just make sure that you can see it. Okay, so I can feel where the edge of my quilt is, and I'm just going to stick it right there in the corner against the other edge. Because remember, these stickers to the dot is 1/4 inch. So we know we're good. And I've got the edge down here on the edge and on the side edge on the open edge. So let's see what happens now. And don't put your finger over your binding or over your sticker. So I'm just going to hold my binding there. Okay, and it's found that sticker. Okay, so now see, it's going to stop. And it's going to tell me, after removing the endpoint sticker, continue sewing. So I'm going to take the little sticker off. It found the sticker. Okay, And I did kind of start, I didn't start in the corner. You notice I didn't start in the corner of the table topper. I kind of started in the middle of a side. Okay, so it's going to go down and it's going to stop. Okay, so it stopped at 1/4 inch from the end. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit my little polka dot tie off button. I'm just going to tie off. Okay, and cut. So there's our first little turn, and it stopped 1/4 inch from the edge. So look. Okay, so there's the 1/4 inch from the edge. So we're gonna flip this over. Okay, I'm gonna do the little flip. So when you do the flip, you're gonna go up at a 45-degree angle. You're gonna line up the raw edges and bring it straight down. And right along, oops, second here. This is pulling on me. So we're gonna flip up and then come straight down, and the raw edges are together like that. And then we're going to, and you notice my little blue line's still here, so I left that on. Okay, so now I'm going to start off the edge of the binding, and I'm going to take a stitch on and I'm going to tie it off. So I started off the edge for my hook. Okay, and then I'm going to hold this, and then we're going to start going down towards the other end. Hold this together. I'm doing my 1/4 inch, and I think I need to, I'm okay. I've got kind of a short stitch, but we're okay. I'd rather have a little longer stitch. This is not my machine. My machine is set, and this one's not. This is the store machine, so. Okay, but we're doing okay. So I'm just going to keep on going. And once I get down a little closer to the end, then we'll put the sticker back on again. Okay, everything lined up. So is this making sense to everybody so far? But yeah, that little thing that I had for bind aid was awesome. And this is how I learned to do binding, because I had never done continuous binding. Okay, so now we're on the edge of the, I'm going to take a couple more stitches, and we're on the edge of the machine here. Okay, there we go. Just so it's a little bit on the edge. And I'm going to reach down, put my binding there. I'm going to feel where the edge of my table topper is, right there. And take my little sticker. And remember that the dark line is going to go horizontally. And I'm going to stick it in that corner so I can feel where that edge is. I'm going to lay it down on the binding and make sure it's stuck down well. Okay, like that. And then remember, don't put your finger over it. And then I'm going to continue sewing. And see, look, it found it. Okay, and it's going to slow down. And it's going to tell me, again, after removing the endpoint sticker, continue sewing. So we're going to take the little sticker off. Okay. And then make sure my binding's lined up. And it's going to go down to the 1/4 inch, and it's going to stop. Okay, then I'm going to use my button up here. I'm going to hold it down. Isn't that cool? What do you think of that? Do you think we can do this? And this is awesome. Okay, we're going to turn this. And see, it stopped 1/4 inch from the edge. Then I'm going to turn it this way. Ooh, well, it looks like I have some little strings I have to cut here. Didn't get all my little, oh, got to wiggle my iron too. It's beeping at me because I'm going to need that iron in a minute. Get some of my little hands. Second, let me wiggle my iron behind me. Okay. Then we're going to do our flip again. Flip it back at 45 degrees. Okay. And then we're going to pull down, straight down. Line up the raw edges. Get it all centered. And then we're going to stop. We're going to start off the edge. Okay. Get this a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Right there. And then I'm going to drop my needle. I'm going to take a stitch, and then I'm going to tie off in the corner there. Okay. And then we're going to start up this other side. This is a cool function, very cool. And if you have the Dream Machine or Destiny, what you would do is you would use the pen, and sometimes I'll do that with one of the sewing machines that still has the pen function. It's really cool. And we'll do that sometime on Shields Live because that's a good function to know how to use. And the Dream Machines and the Destinies have that pen function. And I used it all the time for binding. But this is extra special cool, so with the stickers. All right. So we're going to go on up this way. Keep everything lined up. Okay, so I'm getting close to the edge of my machine again. Okay, so I'm on the edge of my machine and take a couple more stitches, okay? And then we're going to lay our sticker down again. So I'm going to put my finger on the edge of my table topper, and we're going to put this sticker, make sure my binding is even there, okay? And I'm just going to put that right on the edge in the corner. Sure, I got it. Put that on. Okay. And then don't put your finger on it though. And we're going to continue on up the side. It's going to find it. And it's going to stop. Okay, it's going to tell me again, remove your sticker. So we'll take it off. Okay. Get everything lined up again, and it's going to stop at the corner. So isn't this awesome? This works great. Judy told me she really liked it, and I just had never used it, but isn't that fun? Okay, we're going to turn it again. We got a couple more corners to go, so we're going to turn this around. Jan didn't do very good on that corner, but it'll be fine. Sometimes I have a little trouble with my corners, but I didn't do very well with that one, but it'll be fine. All right, so then we're going to go up 45 degrees. Okay. Oh, and you know what? I forgot my clips, so I have to get my clips out when I do the corners. Okay, so we're going to do this, and then we're going to come down at a 45-degree angle and line up our edges. I'm going to drop my needle, and I'm going to take a stitch, and I'm going to tie off right on the corner there. Okay, so is this making sense to everybody? Okay, it doesn't take long to put binding on. All right, so then we're going to go across here again. Get everything lined up. And this is 2 1/4 inch binding. I prefer 2 1/4 inch binding instead of 2 1/2. 2 1/2 is just too wide. And I like snug binding. So this is 2 1/4. All right. I'm used to sewing on my own machine. I have a stitch length set up, and this one's a little short, but we're making it through. Somebody got any questions? Works pretty slick. Works pretty slick. All right, so I'm going to go up a little bit further, and then we'll put the sticker back on. Works pretty slick, so I'll be using this. This is cool. I think a couple more stitches here. There we go. All right, so then I'm going to take my finger and feel the edge there. I'm going to put my sticker on. Remember, the dark line is going to be horizontal. Going to get it lined up in the corner there on the edge. Make sure that's well stuck down because you want it to find it. And then just make sure you don't put your finger over your sticker. Looks like it found it. Okay, and then it's going to go. Okay, I'm going to tie it off. Oops, this one I don't need to tie off yet. I need to take the sticker off now. Told me to take the sticker off. You didn't need to tie off there, but we're going to tie off in the corner. So go on down a little bit further. Okay, there's the corner. I'm going to tie off again. Yeah, isn't this cool, Maureen? I like it too. This is cool. I like it. Okay, so we're ready to go around our last corner. So I'm going to cut off. And I'm going to go around this last corner. Okay. And I'm going to flip this up to a 45-degree angle and bring it straight down, line up my raw edges. Okay, now this one I'm not going to put the sticker on because I'm going to be ending in the center, so I can just end wherever I want. So I'm not going to go ahead and put this in this time. So we won't put the sticker on this time. Okay, so since this is where we're going to start. So I'm going to take a stitch ahead. We're going to tie off in the center. Okay, everything organized here. I'm also used to sewing on a table that is flatbed, so this is weird. I don't have as much room to sew. Okay, there we go. And we want to leave a little space in the middle here, so I'll sew down just a little further. There we go. And I'm just going to tie off, and then I'll show you how to do the ends. All right. So what'd you think of that? And that's pretty cool, isn't it? Trying this today, yeah, no kidding. I do bind a lot of binding, so you know that's awesome. It worked really slick, and it was easy. Okay, so now we're done with that function. So I am going to go ahead and then put my stickers over here so I won't lose them. I'm going to close that function out. Okay, and then we're going to do our. Give me a second. I'm just going to change my stitch length a little bit. Okay, well, it's not on. Oh, here we go. Thought I turned it off. Okay, I'll just tell it to give me the stitch again. Okay. Okay. All right. I just need a little longer stitch. Okay. So then we're going to do the little flip at the end here. So what I do when I do this is I lay my right hand piece of binding out like this. And I'm going to flip it kind of over because it's going to overlap. And it needs to overlap the same measurement as the width of your binding. So my binding is 2 1/4 inches. So I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to take my little hem gauge here and I've got it set on 2 1/4 inches. I love my little old hem gauge. This has always worked well for me for stuff like this. So, and then I has that little thing in there that you can set it. So I'm just going to measure from this end of my binding 2 1/4 inches back. And I'm going to, and if you have 2 1/2 inch binding, it'd be 2 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slide this back here. And I'm actually putting the pin in the back piece because that's the part we want to cut off. So we're going to go 2 1/4. Okay, so there's where the 2 1/4 is. And I'm just going to fold this and we're going to go ahead and trim this off at where that pin is. Okay, just give me a second here. All right. So we're going to take that and we're going to cut it off. So now they overlap 2 1/4 inches. Like that. So they're going to overlap over here 2 1/4 inches. And if you want to make sure, you can just remeasure again. Okay, I think we're good. Looks like it's good. Okay. Then, well, my ends looks a little crooked though. Let's see. Give it a little trim. There we go. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and flip these. So this is always the hardest part for everybody. And I kind of have a little trick. So what I do is I take this side and lay it down. I take a 45-degree and I lay it down like this. And then this piece we're going to lay open with the wrong side down. So you're going to lay this one down with the wrong side down with the right side up. And you're going to open it up flat. Then this piece over here that's hanging, you're going to continue in the same direction. So just keep going with it and then open it up flat. So see, I turned it down like I was going to turn a corner, and then I just keep going with it the same direction. And then I'm going to open it up also like this. And then we're going to join up these two corners. So that was kind of the trick. And I learned that on my little bind aid piece of paper because it showed how they did the flip. And this was always the hard part for me, was doing this little flip. Okay, so we're going to open this up. So in other words, your folds, when you fold your binding, are going to be going opposite of each other, like this. One folds this way, one folds this way. Does that make sense to everybody? This has always been the hard part for everyone. All right, so let me pin this. We're going to pin this together. Okay, and then I like to take like water soluble, or like this is a Frixion pen, and I like to mark where my corners are because I sometimes have trouble seeing them. So I'm going to mark my corner there just to give me a reference point, and then this corner here because I'm going to sew across diagonally across between here. Okay, and you can mark all the way across if you want to. I normally can do it without doing that, but I am going to switch to Q01, which is actually the needle in the center position to do this. Okay, and I'm going to put that stitch length up higher too. All right, so now we're going to fold this in half and lay it flat on the bed of the machine, and we're just going to sew from my mark to my mark over here. Make sure everything's nice and flat. Drop my needle. We're going to sew across to the other side. And you can put your laser light on here too. It's so short a space, I usually can eyeball it and stay pretty straight. Okay. I usually don't take the time to put the laser light on too, but that's a good thing if you have trouble. All right, and then I'm going to take these pins out and we'll test it to make sure that we did it correctly, like this, because it should just lay flat like that. So I think we did okay. So now let's go ahead and trim this bulk off. And we have continuous binding. Get that out of the way. And then I'm going to open this up and lay it flat. I'll just finger press this. Like that. And then I'm going to lay that flat. And there's the rest of our binding. So when I do the binding here, what I like to do is I like to pin this down so that I don't get it crooked or anything. So I always pin this part of it down. That helps me keep everything straight. And this is usually the hardest part for everybody, is getting this last little bit done. And once you do it a few times, I put a lot of binding on, so I do a lot of binding. All right, and then I'm going to go back to my Q02, which is my straight stitch, or my straight stitch, but with my 1/4 inch piecing, so my needle's to the right slightly. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start right where I left off. We're going to tie off again, and then we'll finish this little section. Okay. I don't have my new flathead pins here. These are the round ones. The flathead ones are a lot easier to pull out when I'm doing binding. All right, we're just about there. And everything lined up nicely. Get this one, and then we're almost done. Oops, I got a big long strand thread here. All right, and then we'll tie this one off. And we've gotten all the way around. What did you think of that end function? Isn't that awesome? So we got that. Okay, so now at this point in the binding procedure, I'm gonna, whoops, I gotta wiggle my iron again. It's beeping back here for me. I am going to, and this is very important when you are doing binding with the machine, you need to have a nice, beautiful crease here where the seam is on the back. So I'm going to turn around behind me, and I am going to press this very, very straight along this edge where I have just sewn this on, and then I'll show you how to do the next step. So give me a second. I'm just going to do some pressing. But you want a nice, crisp press on that edge. Because that way everything will line up. So when you are doing binding from the front and hand stitching it down, you do not do this pressing. But when you do this with the machine, you have to, in order to get everything to line up. And it also crispens the edge of the binding as well. Okay, so here's I've got it all pressed. And if you give me just a second, I forgot my clips. I need some clips. So when I put the binding on the front, I don't actually like pin it on or clip it on, except in the corners, because I want these beautiful, beautiful corners. Okay, so what I do is I do my corners, I flip it over, and then you can see where it's going to go because you've got your line that we just sewed it on with. I am going to take some of my little clover clips, and I'm going to put a clip on either side of the corner. So here is this corner and this corner. So that's the only places that I'm going to clip it, on each side of the corners. And then what I'm going to do, oops, I'm going to have to take my little scissors and get this little tail out of here. I'm going to take my thumb, and I got to get a pin ready. Grab my pin. I had a crooked one. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push this up with my thumb along the line that I created. Okay. Push it up with my thumb, and I'm making a 45-degree angle up here. And I'm going to pull this down and bring it down to the sewing on the other corner and make this beautiful corner. Okay, so we're making this beautiful corner, and then I'm going to put the pin in the corner and push up, and I'm going to pin that down, because if I don't have it pinned, it's going to shift when I get there to do the sewing. Okay, so I didn't quite get it that time. I didn't quite get both sides, so I'm going to sew it again, or I'm going to pin it again. There you go. All right, so there's one corner. Okay, and we're going to do this on all four corners. Okay, I'm going to get some of these little ends trimmed out. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to clip on either side of the corner. And I know some of you have seen me put binding on, but I figure we might as well just do the whole thing, right? So that you know how I do it. And then we added that cool function with the stop. All right, so then I'm going to push this up along the line. I'm going to make my 45-degree angle, and I'm going to bring it down into the corner, and I'm going to pin. And you want to make as beautiful a corner as possible, because once you sew it in there, it's going to be in there. So we want to make it beautiful. Okay, this one's being cantankerous. All right. Sometimes I have one that just doesn't work for me, so we'll see. Sometimes if I lay it down on the table and push up like this, I can do it. But this one's just being hard. You always have one corner. Okay, there we go. I think we'll be okay this time. And I'm going to get my pin in there, and I'm going to start down here, and I'm going to push up into the corner to hold everything in place. Okay, a little. Get this out of here so we don't catch that. Now we're going to do another one. So is everybody following so far? Binding is really cool. I'm getting much better at it. I really like binding this way because my binding turns out pretty good. And the trick with the binding is you want to use really matchy thread or monofilament, like your clear thread. And the Mettler Transfill works very well in the needle and the bobbin. So depending on what I'm doing, like I have red matchy thread. So we're just going to use red thread today. I'm just using a Pima cotton thread. So we're just going to use the red today. But if you can't find any thread that matches your color, just use, and you want it to be the color of your binding. Just use the monofilament, and they have a smoke color for the dark colors. So either one of those would work. Okay, so there's another corner. Okay, and then we're going to do one last one. So you can see I only have just a few clips in it. I'm just clipping on either side of the corner. It just helps me keep it straight. Okay. And then we're going to get a pin. Looks like I need to throw some pins away. My pins are really bent. Oops. Got that little tail. The little tail gets in my way. I always have to kind of clip those little tails out of there. All right, get this. Push it up. 45 degree and bring it down and make that beautiful corner. Like that. All right. So there are our corners. So we're ready to do the overcasting. So I learned from Gudrun to do this with a zigzag, and I am doing much, much better with a zigzag than I ever did with a straight stitch. So what happened to me with the straight stitch, and somebody asked that earlier, is that when I would bring my binding over to my line and I do a straight stitch, I would always end up with my line of thread off my binding on the back, and it looked ugly to me, and I don't like that look. So if I use the zigzag, it doesn't do that. I can get it to stay on my binding. Okay. So what I'm going to use for my zigzag is I'm going to use, so we're going to go back to the regular utility stitches, tab number 1, and I'm going to use 1-10. Okay. And I want my stitch width to be 2.0. So I'm going to bring it down, and my stitch length at 1.4. That's the setting I use for my zigzag. It's very narrow, but it's fairly, it's kind of a normal average width lengthwise. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. I've also gotten my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this. I'm going to bring the fabric right up to that line where we sewed it on. And I'm going, and these feet, these J feet, I'm going to still use my J foot. The J foot has a little mark right in the center of the foot, and I'm putting that right on the very edge of my binding. And when I drop my needle, there's going to be one needle, the needle is going to penetrate the binding on the binding, and then on the left side, that's on the right side, and on the left side, it's going to penetrate, it's not going to be on the binding, it's going to be on the quilt. So off and on. That's the trick with this, is to stay off. The left hand stitch is off the binding. The right hand stitch is on the binding. Okay. So I'm watching my seam, and you see I'm just holding my binding. Okay. And I'm holding it. Whoops. Tuck this in. Got a little string hanging out here. And I'm holding it right up to the line. And then I've got the left hand part of the zig is off the binding, and the right hand zag is on it. Okay, we're going to do this all the way around. And if I always have put my glasses on for this, so I know that I'm okay. Going to zigzag, and then when we get down closer to the corner here, make sure there's no questions. I'm kind of concentrating, so I'll try to make sure I'm watching to see if there's any questions. So I'm putting the binding right up to the line. Okay. Adjusting so that it's right up to the line. You can see I'm not going over the line, I'm going right up to it. So the left-hand side of the binding is right on that stitching line. And in this case, it's red, so we can see it real well. Okay, so I'm getting down towards the corner. Now I'm going to take this clip out, adjust this corner, make sure everything's lined up. So I'm sewing one stitch off, one stitch on the binding. So the left-hand stitch of the zigzag is off the binding. Okay, now when we get to the corner, I'm going to pull back a little bit to make sure that I'm well lined up in my corner with my finger. So I've got my finger right here, and I'm going to continue into that corner. Okay. Now the trick is with this, do not take out the pin, because if you do, just be very, very careful. And these are those special little magic pins that are super duper thin. These are extra fine pins. Okay, looks like let me turn my pivot feature on so it's easier. Okay, I'm going to turn the corner, and I have not removed the pin. I'm going to turn the corner, and I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to see. Now I'm a little bit short of my corner, so I'm actually going to turn this back, and I'm going to take one more stitch. Just going to take one more stitch. Okay, because I was a little short of my corner. And the trick is when you turn the corner, you want to make sure that that little straight notch on the foot is right on the edge again. Okay, so I'm right there, and I'm just going to continue out of the corner. The left hand side is off the binding, and the right hand side is on the binding. Okay, we'll take this off, and we're going to continue along the binding. So it's making sense to people? And you can use a straight stitch. If you prefer a straight stitch, use a straight stitch. I do not do well with the straight stitch because it does not look nice in the back. Okay. So we'll do another corner, and I may finish this later so you don't have to watch me do the whole thing because it's the same thing all the way around. Because, it takes a little bit. You got to watch where you're going and everything. Okay. But I don't know if we see if it's enough. If you can see, let me get this side and then I'll pull it back, and then you can see better if what the back looks like. And that's why I do a zigzag. I have had much better luck with a zigzag than I ever did with a straight stitch. No, I don't think the corners will work with the pinpoint because I can't always guarantee that it's exactly 1/4 inch. So no, I wouldn't use the stickers in the corners. I use the notch on my foot to help me know if I'm in the right spot. Now, I'll try to do this corner differently. And if you need to adjust your corner, let me show you how to do that. Okay, so I needed to take an extra stitch in, but if you've gone too far, let me show you how to fix that. And I'll do that this time. Okay, so I'm just holding it down with my finger. Okay, and I just work along until I can't hold it anymore, and then I just grab another little section. And I'm just covering up that red thread. That is the seam line for the binding from the back. Okay. So no, I don't think the buttons would work well in the center or for the top for the binding edges, because I don't think you have to go by where your binding ended up, and it's not going to be exact probably. So I think I would do this manually. Because where I always used my pen on my Dream Machine was what I just did. And that's what I would use the sticker for. All right, so I'm getting close. Now, see, I've got my finger down here in the corner, pulling this back a little bit so that everything evens up for me. The left-hand zig is off the binding, and the right-hand zag is on it. Okay, so I'm getting towards the center. Okay, so when I get towards the corner, let's make sure we're good and straight there. Okay, and this is what happened if you overshoot it. So I'll try to overshoot it this time. Okay, so if I overshot this, which I probably did, I'm going to turn the corner now. And you noticed I turned on my pivot feature. The pivot feature, for those of you who don't know where that is this little button right here that looks like, and a lot of the machines have it, it looks like a little foot with a needle through it. And that is very handy when doing this kind of thing, because then it lowers your needle and raises your foot. Okay, I'm used to sewing on my own machine, so I forget that this one doesn't have all that stuff set up. Okay, now I am looking at my foot, and my notch is about a stitch or two over to the right, and that's too far. So I'm going to raise my needle. This is how to fix it. I'm just going to raise my needle. I'm going to gently slide over, and then I'm going to lower my needle so that my notch lines up with the edge of my binding again. So I just put the needle down, and I move the needle up and then move over, and that works just fine. Okay, and then I'm going to come out of the corner. Okay, doing the same thing. So that's how I fix it if I overshoot it, which is normally what I do. I very rarely undershoot it. I usually overshoot the corners. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. I can do this pretty fast now, but I do have to wear my glasses when I'm working on the edges because I'm looking very closely that I have this centered correctly. But this is sure a lot faster. Okay, so let's look at the back of this one. Okay, whoops, I got a piece of stuff in there. Okay, so if you look at the back, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see the back of my binding, that the edge of my zigzag is right on the edge of my binding? And even in the corner, it's pretty good. I got a little bit off here, okay? But you can see that it's quite well on the back of the binding, and that's why I like the zigzag. I could not do that with a straight stitch because my straight stitch was always over here somewhere. And then it showed on the back of my binding, and it looked weird. And so that's why when I found this zigzag option, now Gudrun uses a much narrower zigzag. I could not hit it unless I use the 2.0. It's not very wide, but she uses a far narrower one, and I cannot hit the way she does it. So I had to go up to a little wider one, but I still think it looks nice. I can make the back look nice. Okay. So we're going down the side here. Go around this second here. So this is a good way to do binding. If I do a lot of binding, and so the machine binding, if you have a really special quilt, by all means, or if you like to hand sew, just sew it on the front and flip it around and hand stitch it on the back. That's absolutely fine. I do so many samples that I find that this works well for me, and I can get the bindings done very quickly that way. And because I just make a lot of stuff that has binding on it. And after I learned this method, and I practiced a lot, and it took me a while to get it down, but once I think it looks pretty good on the back too. And this is also really strong if this is going to be a quilt. Like, I use my quilts, I use them. I wash them and put them on my bed. I sleep with them every night. And I like my binding to be, sewn on by a machine because I think it's stronger to do it that way. All right. So what do you think? I think everybody must be understanding. So we're doing good. So we're getting around here. Okay. Do you want me to finish it? What time is it? You guys want me to go ahead and finish? I'll finish if you want me to. Give me some thumbs up if you think you just want me to go ahead and finish. We'll do the other corners, and it doesn't take very long once you get going here. So I'm trying to be neat because this is for Judy, and I want it to look nice. Even though it's my sample for the class, I want to make sure it looks nice for her. She'll put it out on her table, so. Finish it? Okay, we'll finish it. Then you'll have a whole binding video with the stickers, so that'd be cool. Okay, so we're getting close to this pin. Now I need to, I think I need to go this way with it. There we go. So I'm going to pull back a little bit with my finger so that it straightens out for me. And I'm going to go up into that corner. Okay. Now I might have overshot this one a little bit too. So let's see. We'll flip it around. Yep, I overshot this one by quite a bit. So I'm going to I'm just going to raise my needle, and I'm going to adjust back over to the edge of my binding. Okay, and then drop my needle again. And that's how I fix it. And it works pretty well. You really don't notice that little extra line in the back, because especially if your thread matches well with your binding. So that's why I tell you to be very careful about your binding thread, your thread that you're using for your binding, and make sure it really matches, or use monofilament, because I'd use monofilament quite a bit. Second, I got another big string here. So give me a second here. Oh, sometimes they don't sew in very, ouch, don't sew in very well. By the way, the pins are sharp. Just poked my finger. All right, so we're going to go along this one. And I can go along at a pretty good clip once I get going, but you have to kind of stop and make sure your binding's where you want it. That sticker turned out awesome. I'm going to be using that. So I hope you like that part. This part you probably, some of you may have seen before, but you know, this binding method is something that not everybody's seen. So, all right, we're doing pretty well here. Trying to watch. Do you use the monofilament in the bottom? Yes, I do. The monofilament that I recommend, and it works very well in the needle and the bobbin. It is the Mettler Transfill, and it is up on the website on ShieldSewingCenter.com. It's called Mettler Transfill. And but the trick is when you wind it on the bobbin, you only want to wind about a quarter of a bobbin instead of a full one, and you want to wind it slowly so you can turn down your bobbin winder so that it doesn't wind so fast. I'll show you where that is. But I use monofilament all the time, and it works but that's the one that I've really found that works really well. And it doesn't, you know, I don't sew maybe as fast with it. And I've even used it in the embroidery side before. I just slow the machine down. All right, getting about down to the last corner here, guys. All right. And Judy got her table topper. So this is Judy's table topper. So it's done too. I got the other one here at the store. So if you haven't seen some of the cuties, come take a look at them. They're real. I really like them. They've been turning out real nice. So Kimberbell Cuties. This is the original set. So if you want to sew along with me, you can come and sew along with me. The first 2 weeks of the month, we're doing the Kimberbell Cuties, and we're doing like 1 month ahead. So like right now, we just finished doing, this is April. So in March, we're doing April. Why do you only fill a quarter of the bobbin? So if you, the monofilament, if you try to fill the whole thing, it splays the bobbin. That monofilament will splay your bobbin, and it will break your bobbin, or it'll just make it kind of a funny shape and it won't sew. So don't fill your bobbin very full with monofilament. Maybe a quarter of a bobbin. I usually use a quarter. Okay. Second here, I'm gonna get my clip off. Yeah, it kind of splays it. It's the type of thread it is. It stretches. And yeah, you don't want to put too much bobbin thread on. And I just put a little bit on at a time. You might have to stop and refill your bobbin, but I'd rather do that than have problems. All right, so we're getting about to the end here. I'm not quite lined up here. So hopefully you can see I always have to kind of spread my fingers apart to hold this in. So we're going to pull this down to the corner. Okay. Then we're going to, oops, check my pin here. All right. I'm going to go down to that corner again. Let's see if I can not overshoot it quite so far this time. Sometimes I really get overzealous when I zigzag into the corner there. Okay. We're just about done. We got just a few inches. Now, what I'm going to do down here, this is where I started. I'm just going to stick a pin there so I don't, you know, overshoot it too far. I like the zigzags to come basically right together. So I don't like to like over, you know, zigzag over the other because it makes, you can see it a little bit. All right. Get this off of here. Let's see how I did. Let's see. Whoop. Now I kind of overshot it a little bit. So we'll just pull over a little. There we go. That's better. And then get everything lined up, and out of the last corner, we did it. Out of the last corner. So you can kind of, on this one, you know, I could have used monofilament because a lot of my binding, there's some white marks on my binding with polka dots, but it doesn't look that, doesn't matter which direction you fold the corners. You want to push up. I use my right hand, Janet, and I push up on the right hand side, and fold down on the left, because as you're sewing, that's the direction you're going, and you're not going to be sewing up against the fold. You're going to be sewing over the fold, if that makes sense. Okay, because I push in from the right and I have it fold down over on the left, because that way you're sewing over the fold instead of into the fold. And if you sew into the fold, it's going to pop up. So that's why I do it that way. So do the right hand side first and then the left hand side, because that's the direction you're going to be sewing. Okay. Hopefully that made sense. So yes, it does make a difference which side you do it on. Okay. Get this lined up. Second, I'm getting poked here. All right, we're just about done. Got about just a few inches. Okay. It's kind of out of my way. There we go. All right, and I want to stop so that I don't go over the zigzag too much, because if you do, then it looks kind of weird. So I'm going to tie this off, and then I'm going to cut, because I just came right up to the zigzag. Take that pin out. I'm going to trim off my little end. And now when we look at the back, see, we did pretty well. See the back, there's the back, and it's all along the edge of my binding. Okay. And then it's not over here on the body of my table topper. That's the part that had always bothered me about straight stitching, because I never got it right. And it always went over onto my other part of right over on my binding on the back, on my regular table topper. And it made it really noticeable. Okay. So then I'm just going to take my pins out. And guys, we're done. We did it. So let's see if we can get Tim to come back and say hi to you. I think I see Tim. Just heard him come. I think he was here. Are you here, Tim? So he can say goodbye to you. But there is binding with the sewing feature with the little polka dots. Isn't that cool? I always forget what they call it. I wrote it down here, endpoint sewing function on the border for that. And that works great for binding. I really like that. So what do you think? So I'm going to put my camera back up. Let's see if I can get Tim to come say hi. Maybe he's not here. All right, just a second here. Get the other camera up. And the microphone. Okay. So what do you think of that? Did that work out well for everybody? And I think that's a great way to do binding. Then you have you get those corners better. And if you're very accurate with your corners, when you go to flip it over, then you really have a nice accurate corner when you go to flip it over and make the beautiful corners on the front, because that's the ones we really want to be beautiful. But if you start with them lining up correctly on the back, then you're going to have they're going to work out pretty well. So let me see if Tim's here just a minute. You going to come say hi? Sure. He's coming. You want to sit? Why don't you sit here?
We're good. Hello, everybody. A little late today, moving a little slow. So again, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the liking, comment, share. We'll do another giveaway next week. If for everybody that does that, we'll figure out something. And then, I was thinking if there's anything that you guys want to see, shoot us an email or a comment on here. If there's different things you want us to demonstrate, we're always looking for ideas. So have a happy St. Patty's Day weekend, everybody. Get your corned beef and cabbage.
It's tomorrow, isn't it?
Tomorrow, yes. So
awesome.
Thanks again. We'll see you
Thank
around.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.